The scrapyard planet was cold, dry, and full of dead ships. Old wrecks from wars long forgotten covered the land like broken bones. Kyle moved slowly between the rusted metal, his boots crunching over ash and glass. He wasn't looking for treasure. He was looking for parts, wires, fuel cells, everything that could keep his ship flying for one more week. He had done this 100 times. But today felt different. He paused and looked around. There was a strange sound, so soft he almost missed it. It wasn't metal creaking or wind howling, it was something else. It sounded like crying, very quiet. Like someone was trying not to be heard, but Kyle heard it. He turned off his flashlight and followed the sound. He passed through the tight corridor of a ruined alien freighter. The ship was old, covered in burn marks and vines that had somehow grown through metal cracks. As he moved deeper, the crying got louder. It was real. Someone was here. He stopped in front of a sealed chamber, half buried in dirt and scrap. The door was locked tight, but the sobbing came from inside. Kyle took out his plasma cutter and began slicing through the lock. It took 5 minutes, but it felt like hours. When the door finally hissed open, the smell hit him: rotten food, rust, and something else. Sadness. The room was dark. Only one small light blinked in the corner. And under that light was a cage. Inside the cage was a girl. She was small, thin, and curled up like a broken animal. Her skin was pale lavender, and her hair was tangled. With wires and dust, she wore torn rags that barely covered her. Her eyes were wide open, glowing faintly, filled with fear and tears. When Kyle stepped closer, she hissed like a scared animal and backed into the corner of the cage. Hey, it's okay," Kyle whispered gently, raising his hands. "I'm not going to hurt you." The girl didn't speak. She only stared at him with shaking lips and watery eyes. He noticed her ankles chained to the bottom of the cage. Her arms had bruises, and her fingers were cut and dirty. She was barely alive. Kyle knelt down beside the cage. He didn't speak again for a moment. He just looked at her. This wasn't a prisoner of war or a dangerous alien. This was a child, abandoned, forgotten, and locked away like garbage. He looked around the room. There were empty food trays and a single broken screen. This cage wasn't just a cell. It was her world. And from the way she saw, she had been there a long, long time. "What's your name?" he asked quietly. She blinked slowly, confused. Then she opened her mouth but didn't speak. Not because she didn't want to, but because she didn't know how. Her eyes filled with more tears. Then, in a broken voice, she whispered, "Number. Name." Kyle felt something twist inside his chest, a deep pain, something more than sympathy, anger, sorrow, and guilt all at once. He looked at the chains and pulled out his laser tool. "I'm going to get you out," he said. The girl tensed up again, but didn't resist. It took time, but he cut through the chains. When her legs were free, she didn't move. She was too weak. So Kyle opened the cage door and gently lifted her in his arms. She was light, like feathers. She didn't fight. She just laid her head against his shoulder, eyes half closed, as they walked out into the cold light of the scrapyard moon. The girl whispered again. Her voice was trembling, but clear. "Please, don't leave me." Kyle stopped walking. He looked down at her, and for the first time in years, he felt something warm in his chest. "No," he said firmly. "I won't." And in that moment, with all the stars above them and the silence of the scrapyard behind, a broken alien girl and a lonely human began a journey neither of them could have imagined. The ship hummed quietly in space. Kyle sat on a chair near the sleeping chamber, watching her. The alien girl, still weak and shaking, was curled in a warm blanket. She hadn't eaten much, just a few soft pieces of bread and water. She looked around like a frightened animal, unsure if this new place was real or another trap. He didn't rush her. He just sat there, arms crossed, letting her feel safe. She kept glancing at him. Then away, then back again. Her hands clutched the blanket tightly, like it might disappear. The light was soft, the air warm, and his ship was quiet. But still, she didn't speak. Kyle wanted to ask 1,000 questions: where she was from, who locked her in the cage, what she had suffered, but he stayed silent. He knew silence could be safer than words. She finally sat up slowly, her thin arms shaking. Her voice came out like a broken whisper. "You're not like them." Kyle blinked. "No," he said softly. "I'm not." She looked down at her. "Bruised wrists, they said I was." "Thing," she mumbled, "not person." Kyle's jaw tightened. He had seen cruelty before, but this felt deeper. "How long were you in there?" He asked gently. The girl shrugged slowly. "Don't know." "Time is hard." Then she added, "They never called me anything. Not even name." Those words hit harder than anything else. No name, no identity, just an object locked away and forgotten. Kyle leaned forward and said softly, "Then I'll give you one." She looked up. Confused. "Name. For me." He nodded. "Yeah, you deserve one." He thought for a moment, searching through memories. His little sister's favorite story came to his mind about a brave princess who was once a prisoner. Her name was Lena. It was simple, gentle, and strong. He looked at the girl and said, "Lena, that's your name now." She blinked slowly, trying the sound in her head. "La. Nah," she whispered. It was like tasting sunlight for the first time. She repeated it again, a little louder. Lena. Tears rolled down her cheeks, and she quickly wiped them, embarrassed. But Kyle smiled softly and said, "It suits you." That night, she didn't sleep in the cage or the floor. She slept in the soft bunk bed while Kyle stayed nearby in the pilot seat. He didn't close his eyes, either, just kept an eye on her. Not because he feared her, but because he didn't want her to wake up scared and alone again. Over the next few days, she started to speak a little more. Her language was broken, and some words were missing, but her eyes were more alive. And she started responding to her name. She liked touching soft things, blankets, pillows, even the smooth metal walls. Kyle noticed every time she looked at a cup or a mirror, it was like she was seeing it for the first time. She asked questions too, slowly and carefully. "What?" "This." She pointed to a spoon. "What?" "That do?" she asked while tapping the control panel. Kyle answered each question with patience. Sometimes he laughed softly, and she would smile, too small at first, then wider. But even in those moments of peace, there was a shadow in her eyes. One night, she sat near the window, staring at the stars. Kyle came and sat beside her. "They're beautiful, aren't they?" he asked. She nodded, then said quietly, "I thought I would never see them again." He didn't know what to say to that, so he just sat with her, watching the stars in silence. Later, she asked him a question he didn't expect. "Why? Oh, you save me." Kyle looked at her. She wasn't just asking out of curiosity. She truly didn't believe she was worth saving. He said, "Because you were crying, and no one should cry alone in a cage." He paused, then added, "Because someone should have helped you a long time ago." Lena looked at him for a long time, her eyes soft. Then she leaned gently against his arm. It was the first time she touched him without fear. Kyle didn't move. He just let her rest there, her breathing slow and steady. In that moment, he realized something. He hadn't just saved hers, she had changed him too. He had lived alone for years, drifting from job to job, never staying, never caring. But now, for the first time in a long time, he felt like he had a purpose, and her name was Lena. Days passed. Lena was stronger now, eating better, learning faster, and even laughing softly sometimes. Kyle had added a pillow and a stuffed blanket toy in her bunk. She had never seen one before, but she hugged it every night like it was the Only thing that ever stayed with her. To Kyle, it felt like things were slowly healing, but peace never lasted long in his world. He was checking his ship's power core when the red alert flashed across the monitor. Unknown signal detected, long-range scan sweep, encrypted pattern. Origin Class 9 bounty. Net his fingers froze. Only one kind of message used that kind of encryption, a bounty transmission. He clicked through it, and there it was. Right on the screen, a picture of Lena, dirty and bruised from her cage days. Text blinked underneath. Target classified as stolen genetic assets reward. 1 million credits, dead or alive. Kyle's blood turned cold. Someone had noticed she was missing. And now the entire Outer Rim knew too. He looked toward the sleeping quarters. Lena was inside. Drawing shapes with her finger on the fogged-up window, she looked peaceful, but behind that peace, hush. She didn't know the galaxy had just been invited to hunt her. Hush. Kyle locked down the signal and started jamming outgoing transmissions. He rushed to his control panel and erased the ship's travel logs. He rerouted power from lights to the shields, just in case. His mind was spinning. Who were these people? What did they want from her? He remembered the strange bruises, the cuts that healed too fast. And the day she made a metal cup bend in her hands without touching it. Lena was not just a girl. She was something more. Later that evening, he called her to the common room. She walked in, her steps light but cautious. Her eyes noticed something was wrong. "Are you angry?" she asked, voice low. "No, not at you," Kyle said gently. "Lena, I need to ask something." She nodded slowly. "Do you remember where you came from? Before the cage?" Lena's face went pale. Her fingers curled into fists. She looked down and said nothing for a long time. Then she whispered, "Lab." Kyle leaned forward, heart pounding. "A lab." She nodded. "They made me hurt me." Tested, she touched her temple, then her chest. "They said, I'm broken. Dangerous. Mistake." Kyle felt sick. Who could do that to a child? "Do you know what they were trying to do?" Lena looked at him, and her eyes changed. They glowed just a little more than before. "They wanted a weapon," she said quietly. "But I didn't break things right. I broke people." Kyle's breath caught in his throat. She wasn't lying. She had powers, abilities that normal beings didn't have. She wasn't just an experiment. She was a living tool made to hurt. But all he saw now was a scared little girl who never had a choice. "Lena," he said softly, "you're not a mistake." She looked at him like he had said something impossible. "I'm going to protect you," he added, "no matter what comes." That night, Kyle set the ship on a random flight path and changed the ID codes. He removed the ship's name from the hull and painted over it. They were now ghosts in space. But deep down, he knew if someone wanted her this badly, they wouldn't stop. And he was right. The next morning, the ship's sensor alarms blared again. Incoming signal detected a known vessel approaching fast. Kyle rushed to the cockpit. A dark ship appeared on the radar, silent, unregistered, deadly. Lena walked in quietly. Sensing his fear, she looked at the screen. "That's them," she said without blinking. "They found me." Kyle clenched his jaw and fired up the thrusters. He didn't care who was out there. No one was taking her again, as they prepared for escape. Lena looked at him and said one word that made his heart stop. Run, not from fear, but to protect. Him, and Kyle Noosh was ready to fight back. The dark ship outside didn't respond to any messages. It floated like a silent shark in the stars. No calls, no lights, no warning. Only one thing flashed on Kyle's screen, a lock-on warning. "Missile systems active. Strap in," Kyle told Lena as calmly as he could. She nodded and sat down beside him, gripping the seat with trembling fingers. Outside, the stars began to shift. His ship roared as Kyle slammed the controls and launched them away at full burn. But the black ship followed, fast and hungry. The ship rocked violently as the first missile streaked past them and exploded behind. Flames flashed through the back view window. Metal groaned, and alarms screamed across the control panel. Kyle cursed under his breath. "We're not fast." "Enough," he muttered. He looked at Lena. Her eyes glowed brighter now, and her breathing was calm, like she was remembering something. "Kyle," she whispered. "I know a place." He looked at her in surprise. "You do?" She nodded. "Underground. Tunnels. Old mining world." She reached toward the nav panel and pointed at a sector code deep in the asteroid belt. "A place they forgot. I hid there once without hesitation." Kyle turned the ship and entered the new coordinates. The engines screamed as they pushed through debris and rock. Behind them, the dark ship kept chasing, firing small energy bolts. Shields dropped to 60%. Then 50, then 40. "Kyle," Lena whispered again. "I can help." He looked at her. "How?" She closed her eyes. A soft hum filled the room. Suddenly, one of the side panels of the ship glowed, then snapped off, flying backward into the path of a missile. Boom! The explosion rocked the ship again. But this time they were still flying, still alive. Kyle stared at her. "You did that?" She nodded slowly, tears forming in her eyes. "I can move things. If I feel strong," her voice trembled. "I feel strong when you're near." Kyle felt something rise in his chest. Hope. He reached over and touched her hand. Then, "Stay close," he said, "because I'm not letting them take you." They entered the asteroid field, a maze of spinning rocks and debris. Most pilots wouldn't dare fly through it. Kyle, however, trusted his gut. The rocks danced in front of them, slamming into each other. But he wove through them, twisting and diving. Lena kept her eyes closed. And when a massive rock blocked their path, it moved, just enough to let them pass behind them. The dark ship hesitated, then followed, but its hull was heavier. Its engines slower to turn. It clipped one of the asteroids. A huge burst of sparks flew from its side. Kyle saw it from the rear cam and grinned. "Almost there," Lena said suddenly. She pointed at a cracked moon just ahead, half swallowed by the belt tunnels. Undersurface, from old mining colony, Kyle landed the ship fast and rough, sliding across gray dust. The engines coughed, and the systems blinked red. But they were on the ground. He grabbed a small pulse blaster, threw a coat over Lena, and opened the ramp. "Let's go," he said. The air outside was thin, but breathable. Ast swirled everywhere, and sharp rocks jutted like broken teeth from the ground. Lena led him toward a small metal hatch hidden beneath a pile of stone. She knelt and placed her hand on it. With a low hum, it slid open, revealing a stairway leading into blackness. Just as they started climbing down, the sky behind them lit up. The dark ship landed, dust blasting in all directions. Footsteps echoed from behind them, heavily armed mercenaries in black armor, moving in fast. "Go," Kyle said, pushing Lena ahead. "I'll hold them off." "No," Lena cried, grabbing his arm. "I'm not leaving you." He looked at her with fire in his eyes. "Then run with me," he said. Together they ran into the darkness. The tunnel lights flickered to life as Lena's hand brushed the wall. Ancient systems still working because she had touched them. Old mining carts and broken machines filled the halls. Kyle and Lena ducked behind rusted metal as blaster fire rang out from above. One merc dropped in from the top tunnel. Kyle fired hit the man's chest plate, but it wasn't enough. The merc raised his rifle. Lena stepped forward and raised her hand, eyes glowing white. With a sharp motion, the rifle bent like rubber. The man flew backward into a wall. Unmoving, Kyle stared in awe. Lena was breathing heavily, but she was still standing. She turned to him and said softly, "I don't want to hurt people, but I will." To protect you, they moved deeper into the tunnels until the sounds of the hunt faded. At last, they reached an old vault door. Kyle sealed it behind them, metal locking shut. No signal, no tracker. No way in. In the silence, Lena leaned against the wall and closed her eyes. Kyle sat beside her, hand on her shoulder. "We'll survive this," he whispered. "I promise." The cold metal walls of the vault echoed softly with their breathing. Kyle sat beside Lena on the floor. Her hands trembled slightly, her glowing eyes now dim. She looked scared of herself. The power inside her was dangerous, and she did not want to lose control. Kyle watched her carefully. He had seen how her powers could break metal, bend weapons, and throw enemies back like dust. But now she was afraid she might hurt him or someone else. "Lena," Kyle said gently. "You don't have to be scared here." She looked up at him, eyes wide. "But I don't know how to stop," she whispered. "When I get angry, things break." He nodded. "I know," he said softly. "But you're not alone." Kyle placed his hand over hers. "We'll figure this out together, for hours." Kyle taught her to breathe slowly, to feel her heartbeat and control her mind. He showed her how to focus on small things, a flicker of light, a sound in the dark, the touch of his hand with every breath. Lena's fear seemed to fade a little. She tried to move a small rock with her mind. At first it shook, then lifted gently. Her face lit up with a shy smile. "I did it," she said quietly. Kyle smiled back. "Yes, you did." Days passed in the vault. No sound came from outside. Kyle shared stories of Earth, of trees and oceans. Lena listened with wonder. She told Kyle about her home planet, blue skies, green fields, and warm suns. But always, her stories stopped when she spoke of the lab, the place that had taken everything from her. One afternoon, the silence was broken by a low rumble. Lena's eyes flashed bright. Kyle stood up quickly. "Stay calm," he told her. "We might be under attack." The vault doors shook as heavy footsteps echoed from outside. Voices shouted orders. "They found us," Kyle said. Lena's hands clenched tightly. "I won't run," she said firmly. "I will fight if you teach me." Kyle nodded. "We fight smart," he said. "Control, not chaos." He took her through drills, how to move slowly and think clearly, how to use her power only when necessary. Lena struggled at first. Her emotions were wild, but she wanted to protect Kyle more than anything. So she tried again and again. One night, Kyle showed her a simple trick. He took a candle and lit it. "Focus on the flame," he said. "Feel its warmth. It's light, it's calm." Lena stared at the candle, her hands steady, slowly. A small breeze blew out the flame, but she smiled proudly. "I did it," she whispered, without breaking. Kyle's heart warmed. This was the first real step, a sign that she could live without fear. But even with her progress, danger loomed. They were not safe. Outside, the hunters prepared to break in again. They had weapons designed to capture or kill. And they knew about Lena's powers. Kyle feared what might happen if she lost control in a real fight. One evening, Lena sat beside him and asked, "Why do you stay with me?" Kyle looked at her. "Because you are not just power or fear," he said. "You are a person, someone who deserves kindness." She looked down. "I was never kind too," she said. "I was pain and anger." Kyle shook his head. "Everyone deserves a second chance." He reached out and touched her cheek gently. "You are more than your past." For the first time, Lena's tears were not of fear. They were of hope. She leaned into his hand, and Kyle knew, together, they could face anything. The silence inside the vault was thick and heavy. Kyle and Lena had just settled when a sudden loud crash echoed from above. The vault door rattled violently. Mercenaries were breaking through. Kyle grabbed his blaster and held Lena's hand tight. "We have to move," he whispered. But before they could react, the heavy door burst open. Black-armored soldiers poured inside, weapons raised and eyes cold. Kyle fired first, hitting one merc's chest plate, but there were too many. They overwhelmed him quickly. A strong grip grabbed him, chains clamped tight on his wrists. He struggled but was pulled down. "Where's the girl?" a harsh voice demanded. Kyle spat out, "She's with me." Lena watched from the shadows, her heart pounding. She had never felt so helpless. Years of fear and pain rose inside her. She wanted to run, to hide, to disappear, but something inside broke the chains of fear. She stepped forward into the light, her glowing eyes fixed on the soldiers. The room went silent. The mercs froze, unsure what to do. One soldier sneered, "Show yourself, freak." Lena took a deep breath. Her voice was low but strong. "Let him go." They laughed. "Or what?" the leader asked. Lena didn't answer. She raised her hands slowly. A bright light shone from her palm. Metal pipes and weapons bent and twisted. The soldiers stumbled backward. Fear flashed in their eyes. Kyle's heart raced. He saw the power she held, not just dangerous, but alive and fierce. He shouted, "Don't hurt them unless you have to." Lena lowered her hand, her breathing quick. "But I won't run," she said. "I will fight." The mercenaries recovered and fired. Blaster bolts flew through the room. Kyle shielded Lena with his body. She focused on her training, moving objects to block shots, breaking chains and locking doors behind them. They ran through tunnels, Lena guiding Kyle, her powers flaring when danger came too close. They reached a narrow shaft leading to the surface. The only way out. Kyle looked back. The mercs were close. He helped Lena climb the ladder, her arms weak but determined. At the top, fresh air and cold wind hit their faces. Freedom so close. Suddenly a rope snared Kyle's ankle. He fell hard. Hands grabbed him. Lena screamed, "No." She turned and faced their enemies alone, her hands glowing, ready to fight. But she didn't want more blood, so she made the ground shake. Pushing the mercs back just enough to slow them down, her voice cracked. "Go? Run." Kyle shook his head. "No, I'm not leaving you." Lena's eyes filled with tears. "You have to," she said. "They will kill us both if you stay." Kyle forced a smile. "You saved me once," he said. "Ah, now it's my turn." Lena nodded, her face hard with resolve. They fought side by side as they moved through the rocky terrain. Kyle's blaster and Lena's powers, a fierce combination. At last, they reached an old transport ship. Kyle helped Lena aboard, then turned to face the last of their enemies. His blaster fired steady and true. Lena climbed into the pilot's seat, hands shaking but strong. She started the engines. The ship roared to life. They lifted off just as the mercenaries reached the landing pad. As they flew away, Lena looked at Kyle. "We survived," she whispered. Kyle smiled. "Yes, together." For the first time in a long time, neither was alone, neither was afraid. The stars stretched endlessly outside the ship's viewport. Kyle sat beside Lena, who was quietly watching the passing lights. The danger behind them was fading, but the journey ahead was still unknown. Lena reached out and took Kyle's hand. Her fingers small and warm. She looked up at him with eyes full of trust. "Kyle," she said softly, "you are family." Kyle smiled, a feeling of peace washing over him. He squeezed her hand gently. "Yes, Lena," he said, "you are my family." They had been through so much fear, pain, escape, and survival. But in this moment, the past felt far away. She was no longer a prisoner, no longer an experiment. She was someone who belonged. News of their escape spread fast through the colonies and spaceports. The bounty hunters and mercenaries who once hunted Lena were stunned. A human had not only saved the lost alien girl, but had also stood by her fiercely. People whispered stories of their fight and flight, of a power too strong to capture, and a bond too strong to break. The Galactic Council took notice. A special transmission was sent across star systems. Human rescues alien captive, turns her into daughter and hero. The message read, "Many doubted at first." But the proof was there in videos and reports. Lena's glowing eyes, her calm strength, and Kyle's unyielding courage on a quiet moon colony. They found a new home, simple, peaceful, and free. Lena learned to smile without fear, to walk without pain, to dream without chains. Kyle helped her grow stronger, teaching her about Earth and its strange wonders. She loved the stories of oceans and forests, of birds and mountains, of kindness and hope. One evening, as they sat under twin moons, Lena spoke for the first time about her future. "I want to help others." She said, "To protect those who cannot protect themselves." Kyle nodded, proud. "You already do," he said, "and I will always stand with you." Their story became a symbol of hope for the lost, of strength for the weak, and of family made not by blood, but by love and choice. Lena smiled. No longer a cage, no longer just a name, but a shining light in a dark galaxy.